everyone. Welcome to our Cafecitos Empower Breaks, another Wednesday that we're here with an incredible guest. I'm so excited to talk about a very important topic about mental health. But before I introduce our guest, I do want to highlight a new news. We're now having all of our Cafecitos available in our website. So if you go to our website, you'll see a tab that says media, and you'll be able to find all of our cafecitos there. And we're also going to be creating blogs and articles, and those will be going out on our weekly newsletter. So there will be different places where you'll be able to find all the wealth of information that we've been sharing in these cafecitos there as well. So remember to join at unitedlatinas.com and check that out. So Martha Garzon, I'm just so excited to have you here today in our cafecito. I know you're a mental health advocate, and that's the topic that we're going to talk about today because it's so important. It's something that our culture, there's sort of these beliefs, these traditions, all of these barriers, and it's becoming such an important topic for us to understand and to become aware of our own mental health. So I want to kick it off in terms of exactly that. Like, how do you think culture has shaped our view of mental health, self-care, and then seeking treatment? Because it is important that we do so.
Yes, thank you, Iliana. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate you inviting me to this space and to talk about this topic that is very near and dear to me, to the work that I do, and really, right, to who I am as a person. So, really, first talking about how I think culture has shaped the way we see or have viewed mental health, right, seeking care and seeking treatment. I'll start with first mental health. So the way that I think it's influenced us, first of all, is the language. And I'll start with the language that we're using. So I appreciate the way that you, the way you presented it and spoke about it, right? Because mental health is not really mental illness or mental disease or mental disorders, right? Mental health is really a part of who we are, part of our being. We are a holistic being, mind, body, and spirit. And so I believe that really, right, culture is also our beliefs, and you said that in my mind when, right, like you hit it. It's our beliefs, our behaviors, our norms, and our values, and I believe it's a fabric of our society, and it's in our environments, it's in our systems, and it those conversations we're having and the way we speak about mental health matters. I am a mental health advocate. I am also a mental health patient. I navigate the system. I'm currently a patient of the system, and these things matter. The way we talk about them, I've spent years in my own journey trying to understand what mental health was for me as I was living this and tormented with thoughts, tormented with feelings, but working the everyday job and living what looks like a normal life on the outside, but then trying to figure out what's this, right? Mental health, mental illness, mental disease, and trying to figure it out. So I think, first of all, it really influences the way we speak about it. Next, and I mentioned it, it's that we live in a paradigm that separates mind from body from spirit, and it's really all connected. And I think we also, and what I see and what I have felt is that we see matter over mind, and we see that in the services that are offered, in the way we speak about mental health, and so on. So in that space of mental health, it really does shape the way we see things. So personally, I've had to change the narrative and understand what it means to me so that I could navigate and strengthen my health in the mental space, right? And it does affect my physical health and spirituality as well. In terms of self care, I feel that today what we hear is a lot of self care in terms of feeling good, doing things that feel good. And I think that is okay and that is good because I do that. And I had a conversation recently with a friend, and we agreed that that part of it is a reward to the hard work that it really does take to do self care work. And by that meaning introspection, self reflection, observation, and changing things that are affecting our being. And we see that again, right? Physical health. I think, right, the way our physical self might present itself to the world and to ourselves is also a reflection of our mind. So just trying to understand what are these things and what do we need to do to look inside and take care of ourselves and then reward ourselves in different ways. I've taken on practices like acupuncture, massage, as I was doing this self work and really healing from things of the past, which, right, that's takes us to the third part of seeking treatment. The way culture, I think, that is influencing us in seeking treatment is that unless we are in a position or in a state where we might be visibly ill and possibly making statements against our own life or others, if it's not that serious, we may not get a help that we need, right? In seeking treatment, right? And I say that because I've had to start seeking treatment in a place where I've struggled, and yet the system is telling me one thing, culture narratives, right, are telling me if you're not X, Y, or Z, you are not really ill. Therefore, you might not need the space or the time to get that treatment or heal of something that people can't see. So it does affect really us seeking treatment, and trying to make space for that. I mean, if you see a broken bone, right, we see it, so we know how to protect that space and let it heal and not touch it while it does, right? It's healing. In the mind, we don't have that, right? Scans are showing it. If you get to that place and you have that opportunity, I'm exploring some treatments, but then access and finances are another part, and those provide the scans, not the everyday conversations or group therapies. So that's how I think that culture is affecting all three of them, and they really all, right, come together.
You touch on so many very important points, and I think it all boils down to, and you called it out very importantly, the narrative of what we believe the definitions of each of these are, and or what we've seen or what we've heard, right, either from media or from a culture perspective, and then the narrative that we tell ourselves, because I think you touch on it from a physical health perspective. It's easy, quote unquote, it's easier to see, like, I have a broken bone, something on my skin, like I can see it and do something about it. And even if it's, I have something in my stomach, a stomach bug, like even I can sort of feel it and know it. But from a mental health perspective, um, it's not as easy to put our finger on it, and therefore, and the things that are visible or that are sort of out there, they're not normally very negative. And then the narrative is it's a disease, it's crazy. Like we have all these very extreme descriptors for what that could look like, and therefore we just like put it to the side or don't take care of that, which is very important to acknowledge it and to take care of that. So how do you think then, having all of these beliefs, these narratives are, just the cultural baggage that we bring impacts each of these?
Yeah, I mean, immediately it brings me to our self concept, how we see ourselves, and I think it's really the reason why perhaps many individuals will not speak up, s- say they're struggling, express what their thoughts are and feelings, because it goes back to narrative and really just self concept. How does the world see me? You just mentioned it, Iliana, like that. Am I crazy? I've thought, these thoughts, am I, what's wrong with me? It wasn't until my 30s, I'm in my 40s. So, I mean, anyways, it's a lifetime, 30s, that I didn't realize how that an abuse was a trauma and what that trauma meant and how that trauma shaped me, because that's how I learned to protect myself and cope in the world as a young person. That was mind blowing, life changing, because it started showing me a lot, but now I have to do the work, right? But up until that point, I had been diagnosed with depression by the age of 17. I had been self harming for some time. I mean, you can just, it's a common list of things that we see today. And to not understand what was going on with me, and then to realize how it all tied together. So it definitely impacts self concept. And we have to go against that when we decide to make a difference for ourselves and seek treatment. And what does that mean? It can mean different things to different people. For self care, I don't think we really, let me actually add one more: stress. All right. Just about the stress, environments are fueling and feeding stress. And I think for all businesses in all areas, it's something to think about. That's because we make the culture, right? We are the fabric. We form these different cultures. I worked in an organization that's so big that every time I would move to a unit, it had its own subculture, its own beliefs, the way they behaved, what they valued. Do we value our mental health over physical health, right? Or do we just see them equal, or how do we see them? Right. So the stress element is huge, right? Because that all ties to its a physiological response and how it's affecting our mind, and it affects everything. Then we go into self care. Stress, self care. The environments are not really set up for us to take that time to care for ourselves truly. I think, and I'll say for myself, starting at a young age into this world, business world, corporate world, and recognizing now how I was just forming my personality. But now that I pulled something, it's pulling everything. And just to recognize, well, again, in my case, once you do that, you build a life, you build a world, you go into an environment. And if that environment is not set up for you to care for yourself, you're not going to have that space. We work jobs that are typically 8:30 to 5. And if we have families, we have enough time to get home, take care of our children, or even if it's a spouse or being with family, go to bed and do it all over again. So it just makes us think, when do we really take care of ourselves, not just the reward part, but start to dig in, right? So I think it directly impacts our time and how we can do the work. And then the last piece that we had here in terms of seeking treatment, again, I just really think that it's difficult to seek treatment when, unless you are seen as critical or urgently need to be seen, that you can remove yourself, the environment does not allow for that. You, as if you had, again, a broken arm or broken leg, should continue and must continue doing what you've done all your life, while now adding this huge elephant into your world that you have to start chipping away at. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And the stress levels actually, it all, I feel, is a system that you begin to erode, right? If you don't have a place to do the work, it all starts internalizing.
And I think it's very important to highlight that we need to, and you sort of touched on it, that it's important that all the pressures, all the stress, all the fast-paced environment is that additional kind of layer to this whole thing, where we need to really make a pause and understand what are we going through, and if it doesn't seem normal, or if it doesn't, uh, like, pay more attention, more self-awareness, so that we can then do something about it, because if not, we just, all of these stresses and everything that we go through, we just assume it as natural day to day, and we shouldn't. We should be happy, we should be productive, we should be, not be living under these assumptions and under this stress of how we should be versus actually feeling it that way. So how do we, since it's not as easy as a broken bone to say, okay, now I need to do something about it because this is not right. How do we shift and how do we change uh, in order to step in the right direction, either for our mental health, for our well-being? What do we need to do?
I think when we go back to just culture in general, we as a society, right, make up these cultures, right? So we start thinking of us as an individual. I think the first thing is learning more and more about what this is, what this means, having more conversations. I think the conversations are very important, right? The conversations we're having, Ileana, but also groups conversations. I'll tell you, one of my last treatments that I was in was a group with women, and I've never really been, fond of, oh, let me go in and talk in this space, but it's part of my treatment, so I went all in. It's been one of the like most insightful experiences. Can't say fully healing because that's when it was beginning, when we were starting to dig. But you start uncovering so much of it, and also something you touched on is how things like stress and the things we're living, we think they are normal. We might feel like they're normal. It's what we're learning, and honestly, I did too. Even like up until recently, it's just, oh, I'm stressed. It's what we say. I don't say it anymore now. Like I'm very intentional and understand that if I'm stressed, when I've been depressed, to really recognize depression and see it as a gift recently, very, very recently. These are gifts to us that our body is showing us that something is happening, something's going on. Our body, once again, connected to our mind, connected to our spirit, our body does show us these things. I developed hyperthyroidism years ago, but it was just a stress symptom. So, as you mentioned, recognizing it and figuring out what we need to regulate. So, how do we start changing this? Learning more, having conversations, having group discussions to get into the meat of this work. Um, I definitely say that in community care is something I promote. I talk about getting together and really being of service to one another, creating these spaces. Conversations do heal. I think they heal so much. I mean, we need medicine. We need a lot of what's out there. I use them, but there's a power in people, in community that medicine can't give. The medication can't give. It's in the heart of people. It's in our minds. So really starting to heal. And I think the more we learn, the more we start to change the cultures. I consider having a culture in my home, right? In each system, their culture. So what I believe, what I set as being priority and valuable here in our home, that's what we speak about. Mental health is one of them, well-being, conversations. If you don't feel well, let's talk it out. If you're upset, let's talk it out. So I think that we each of us start having these conversations with ourselves and in our homes, and we can continue to spread this and change the paradigm, change the fabric, I think, of the space of where we're living.
It's so important. And um, I know we're almost out of time, but how do you? I feel like there's an additional layer of I'm going to call it taboo for lack of a better word right now. That in addition, it feels like we can't talk about it because we might seem, that we're not strong enough. Like there's this expectation, and especially as women and especially as Latinas, right? We have to have everything figured out. We need to know all the answers. We take care of, you know us, our families, our extended families, people at work. Like there's all these expectations of who we should be, that I feel like talking about us not feeling good in some way or form, it's almost like prohibitive. Like, how are you going to show that you're not well and that you need help when you're expected to do all, to serve all of these people that we believe that we depend on us? Do you feel like that is something that you're sort of experiencing from your point of view in the work that you do, that there's that added layer that we need to also shift and change the narrative and come in community as Latinas so that we can help each other, especially in those spaces where we're the only one, right? And might not know how to go about it.
Hi, Liana. I mean, everything we talked about touches my heart, but that really touches deep because as I embarked on my journey in November, which was different from anything I've done in my life, I spoke to two friends at work. Some and we met, and it was going to be a short meeting, but my intention was to share that I was going to go into treatment, and it was heavy for me. I did it very intentional because I feel like I had to peel that off of me to let people know I had to step away from some things because that's part of doing the work. I couldn't be what I had been. And it means, right? I had to take from my mind the fact that it meant I wasn't strong enough, that instead I was being strong and that I was being authentic. And being authentic, I knew the power was there, but it is not easy. So even having this conversation today, it's what I do, but it's still, we put ourselves out there. But I know that the power is in that authenticity, and that is how we heal, and that's how we liberate. And I believe we need to have more conversations. I mean, it's hard in our workspaces, but I think in the Latino community specifically, I mean, it's an added layer of taboo. The stigma is greater, and there's a lot of research and information out there that shows that less access, less conversations, the numbers are higher, and it's frowned upon. So I really appreciate that. And I think the more we do it, it's getting easier for me, definitely. The first time I was in tears, talking about it, knowing that, being authentic, this is powerful, but I was in tears because it felt uncomfortable. I felt like everything I had shaped for 20 something years. I've been in corporate for 22 years now. 21 years of that, I was like just laying it out there and saying something's going on that I have to go away, but nobody knew this, right? Because we don't show that. You just work, right? And then I go home and I do what I got to do. And then I struggled with myself or whatever, but show up again. And that was my face. So here we are doing the work. This is making it easier. And I think the more we talk about it, we allow others in any space to talk more about that. And in this case, I think it's about mental health, and that mental health is something for all of us. It's something we should all be doing all the time. Some may have, mental illnesses to treat, mental disease, but mental health is right, the good. It's what we need to just take care of on a daily basis.
Thank you so much, Marta, because for sharing this. Because, like you say, we need to start by talking about this, by knowing that this, understanding the different definitions, understanding that this is something that we all go through. It's not unique to a handful of people. We all go through different stages, different moments, different impact, but in the end, it is part of our well-being. To your point, it's heart, body, soul, all together, mind, all together. We need to take care of each piece with the same importance, with the same focus, right? It's not one or the other. We need to take care of all of us in order to be able to be the best that we can be for ourselves and for those that we care for. If you are in our audience or anybody feels that you need to talk about this, Marta, do you have any recommendations? Should they, reach out to an expert? Any thoughts on how can they go about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes most of us wonder if we even need help or to seek any type of help. And I would just say, I think everybody could benefit from a therapist if you have the means, just because it is really good to speak to somebody. There's some websites out there. I mean, I'll say, Liana, that I know that, I think a lot of people are on wait lists. That's part of the problem, right? They're wait lists, and then for youth, there's longer wait lists. But I would say psychology.com, very common website. I found my therapist there. The system that I'm part of did not have therapists. McLean Hospital, for anybody who's in the local Boston area, it's a place that I also am very connected to because of the different programs. But definitely, I'd say to speak to somebody. Don't keep it in. I think that's the biggest thing. I have two adult young ladies now, and they're not really into seeking therapy and going out there, but opening up and creating space, talking to someone, I think is very, very important. And I believe that would open up and will open up doors to the next step.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we do have several highly qualified experts and therapists as members of United Latinas. So if you join, you look at all the member directories and you'll be able to find them there. And as Latinas, they'll be able to support you on your journey because been there, done that normally also helps in this support group. So that could also be a place and a space to reach out to. Thank you so much, Marta, as always. And we're going to continue to open these spaces for conversation for this very important topic because we need to shift the narrative. And for us, it's important that we help in that journey so that all of us can continue to do our job the best way possible. Thank you so much, Marta.
Thank you, Liliana. Un abrazo.
And un abrazo. And to everybody that's watching, remember we have our workshop coming up next week with Marisa Gomez. It's a workshop in Spanish, and it's all about actually changing our narrative in our mind and finding how to eliminate those limiting beliefs and how to empower ourselves. And Marisa is going to take us through some very, very actionable practices. So don't miss out on that one. That one's next Thursday. You can sign up at our website, unitedlatinas.com. And we're soon next week, we're going to start highlighting all the events that we have available for July. So continue to reach out to us because we're here to support you and everybody on all Latinas on your leadership journey. Thank you once again, Marta. And thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the day wherever in the world you are.